So here we are, episode 23, back in action.
Yes, sir.
Getting close to the end of the year, but we got a couple more left. Maybe we'll do a season finale special or Christmas special or something. I don't know what that looks like, but
throw a Christmas tree in the other corner.
Yeah, we'll just we'll put a decoration in green screen.
Put some
over
Santa
here.
hats on.
Yeah, I
there
was
you
about
go.
to say, I got the Santa hats ready. So maybe an elf hat. We'll see.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So hopefully everybody had a pretty good holiday and got some relaxing in and all that good stuff, and hopefully our viewers did too. So it's always good.
Stayed on my VPN the whole time, so I'm good.
There you go.
Yep.
Black Friday, Cyber Monday, be cyber aware, cyber smart. Lots of fake scams going around right now. It's that time of year, so watch out.
Oh yeah, I clicked for all those coupons that came in through email. Don't worry.
Click
that
right?
link and go.
You put in your neighbor's information, hopefully, not yours.
Of course.
That's why you always have a Proton Mail email to burn or something,
that's
right?
right.
Throwaway account. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always fun to see the nice uptick in social engineering attacks come in around this time of year. It's like, oh, I didn't even know I was a member of this site. And then you got a 50% coupon.
What's funny you say that is I actually like to your point, like I get so many coupons of things sites I used to visit. So I'm like, oh, unsubscribe. But I can actually go through and clean these up because you forget about them. And you're like, oh yeah, I forgot I even bought something from there years ago. So stuff like that.
That's a good point. What if you embedded the phishing link into the unsubscribe button? Like you just annoy them with phishing emails that are legitimate, or illegitimate, and then one of them you finally get over it and you're like unsubscribe, and it just takes you to the actual phishing page. That's
you're giving away all your secrets.
Yeah.
There, Sammy. I don't know. That's a good one though.
Well, it's Google helps with that. I like that they just have a button you can click that goes and does magic on the back end.
Yeah.
For you. But you click that link. I always used to thought that was a test to see if your email was really active or not. And then they would keep you on the list or sell you to somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too, just kind of going off topic here a little bit, is with this time of year and certain things. I saw this interesting article, and we'll kind of talk about it as part of this. But leveraging, like we're talking about, like some new Netflix shows, and I think most of us have either watched or heard about Squid Games. Just kind of blew up out of nowhere, and there was actually a lot of phishing campaigns around using Squid Games. Like, hey, it's popularity, everyone knows about it. Come watch a sneak peek of season 2 or apply for casting. There was some things going around that Proofpoint mentioned, and things like that. So even this time of year, it's just these things to be aware of. Like people are kind of home a little more vacation. They're watching more, and they're leveraging the latest whatever it's Narcos or Squid Games or whatever show you're watching, and there you go. So always be guards up.
Well, and I'm sure with this new variant of COVID that's coming around too, there's going to be a lot of emails trying to phish people for that, because you need to get another vaccine shot, or
the booster, or travel
right.
updates. Hey, click here to learn about what OSHA is going to say next, or California XYZ, and there you go.
Fall right for it.
If you think about like the similarities across these attacks, it's all really preying on the same thing. That's just human emotion, whether that's fear from the variant or hype from the shows or whatever it is. It's this. They're banking on the fact that you're not thinking before you do what you're doing, and perfect time of year to do it because people's guards are low. You're interacting with systems way more often than you typically would be because of buying gifts and whatnot, and maybe making travel arrangements. So it's a perfect time. And like you mentioned, there was Squid Games, with how big and popular that was. They know that if they use an attack like that, you can cast a pretty big net, and hopefully catch at least a bigger percentage.
Worldwide net too, right?
Right.
I mean, it was such a popular show. It wasn't just like a U.S. thing. It was
worldwide.
Global phenomenon.
Exactly.
Interesting show, to say the least. So.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one. These YouTubers recreated it, and I think it was Mr. Beast. They're a pretty popular channel. It was pretty entertaining to watch. It makes me want to participate in something like that myself.
We'll have to do like a cyber Squid Games event somehow or whatever. I don't know what that looks like, but we'll figure it out.
Well, I think that fits right into the topic with the first item, where Interpol arrested 1,003. Can't forget the 3 of them.
Yeah.
People, and got approximately 27 million U.S. funds recouped. And this was a crackdown along 20 different countries. So I think it's kind of cool to see how we're working together to help fight the cybercrime war that's going on right now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, and it's very interesting the system that they used. I don't know if you guys saw that, the anti-money laundering rapid response protocol, or ARRP. That was a very, very interesting piece because I believe this was a pilot test. This is not something that they have been implementing regularly in the past, and it interconnects a lot of different organizations, systems, and communication channels for rapid response in these types of situations to essentially stop the movement of illegal funds into legal accounts. So they were able to use it successfully in several different situations in this operation. So it's interesting to see that kind of system put into place. When I was doing research on it, there wasn't a lot of details into the how it's engineered and how these systems are communicating. But it's interesting to see that there is this international effort to build some kind of system that will allow them to, autonomously or more rapidly shut down that kind of behavior. So interesting takeaway from that, on top of just how large scale the operation was, how many individuals were taken down.
Yeah, I mean, if you kind of read through it, right? I mean, like you said, 1,000+ people, 26 million, 20 countries. It says it closed about 1,600 cases, blocked about 2,300 bank accounts that were tied to, alleged criminals. Helped a textile company actually with that business email compromise. So there was a whole bunch of things going on here, right? It wasn't just like one specific, business email or ransomware gang. That was like this whole just cyber criminal, just conglomerate almost. So really cool to kind of see this type of stuff in action. And I think we're going to see more of this and more of that kind of global collaboration, if you will, because, cybercrime has no boundaries, no geographical boundaries, if you will. It just kind of is everywhere, like we always see. So, seeing this stuff happen, I think we're going to see more and more of it, and it's frankly pretty awesome and exciting.
Yep. Unfortunately, it's so small of a drop in the bucket that it's not going to have a huge impact, but I think it sends a message that this is going to start and continue. They're not going to stop, right?
Well, certainly it'll deter some percentage of people from trying to repeat the action or maybe get into the scene. But yeah, to your point, there's still plenty of people out there who see the incentives much greater than the risks. And to your point, Derek, it's very interesting to see the specific type of fraudsters that they went after. Typically online fraud like romance scams and investment fraud. So it just shows where they view a lot of the successes happening, as well as where a lot of the money is flowing between hands from criminal and non-criminal hands. So that domain, that area, still is very incumbent upon a lot of those social engineering strategies and techniques that we've constantly been talking about. So it just goes to show that they're not just going after these highly technical groups that are going after 0 days. They're going after those middle tier guys that are just using these social engineering exploits and are part of these big rings of fraudulent operations. It's not just the technical. It's these online type of fraud that have just as much of an impact on our day-to-day lives. So,
yeah, someone you might kind of more call like a scammer, so to speak, and that kind of middleware. I think to your point also, like this might help deter some of the groups and gangs from kind of forming and starting if they're realizing, hey, even in these other countries I might be targeted or kind of go after, then it could help prevent, like the heads from flaring up. But, obviously we all know there's some, larger kind of ransomware gangs that are very sophisticated and complex. And, we've seen those start to kind of be sought after and taken down. But this is just kind of good, good old internet policing type of a thing, right? So it's really good stuff.
Yep. I know there was a Colombian textile company that they talked about that they basically saved from bankruptcy. So there's $8 million in a business email compromise that they fell victim to, and they were able to get back quite a bit of the money from that scenario. So it just proves how big BEC is from that perspective, and that you really should plan to protect against it.
Yeah, and it's also interesting that you brought up a good point. And before this, a lot of hackers would find their home in places without extradition to the United States and whatnot. But if you look at the participating countries here, you have countries like China and Japan and Spain. So all these different countries that have not formally worked together before in this way, which indicates that maybe those if hiding out in Eastern European countries performing these types of attacks may not work as well as before, right? If those countries are now cooperating with other countries to kind of take down those individuals. So yeah, it just no safe harbor now kind of goes both ways, not just for us but the criminals as well.
Yep. So I think another one we can look at, kind of going the opposite spectrum here, is Apple and NSO Group and that type of stuff here has been back in the news again, right? So we kind of have two different interesting fronts here. So Apple's been alerting, certain journalists and activists in certain countries that, hey, they might be targeted by state-sponsored attacks, leveraging, Pegasus, NSO Group and things like that. And then kind of tying into this as well as, Apple's essentially having a lawsuit against the NSO Group for, violation of, iCloud terms of service and being targeted and, kind of what they do and what they offer and things like that. So, this isn't the first time we've heard kind of Apple in the news being very pro-privacy, and NSO Group in the news for like what tools they offer and what countries they essentially sell to and this and that. So lots of things kind of happening right now. I don't know, Brian, what are your kind of thoughts on that one?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I thought it was interesting that Apple actually went directly to these people. If you think of journalists, when they write newsletter articles or journals or whatever, they usually always have their email address posted there. And what do you think their Apple ID is? It's probably that email address. So it becomes a simple target from that perspective. So I do think it's interesting that Apple's reaching out directly. I think there was a list of so many people that they talked about that they sent their notices to from that perspective. But yeah, no, I just think it's good for Apple to step up and help these people that may be compromised from that perspective. But it also makes you think too, like if your email address is publicized out there, do you have the 2-factor authentication enabled and all the other things that we always talk and preach about from that perspective? Or maybe you should use something else for your Apple ID.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, not the first time they've made a strong stance on the topic of privacy, but I think it's kind of their responsibility to their customers. I can't imagine it would be very good for their business if they had been known to cooperate with governments to reveal private data and or to be complacent enough to allow that data to be stolen quite rapidly or easily. So yeah, as much as it's a very positive thing that they're looking out for our privacy, I also think it benefits them to maintain that reputation of having top-end privacy and security for their consumers. And personally, I think that would be a huge hit to their business otherwise. I imagine a lot of people are specifically on Apple. I know a lot of my own peers are specifically on there because of their privacy law, or not their privacy policies, as well as the amount of vulnerabilities on their devices compared to other similar devices, which is a lot less. So yeah, I think there's it's definitely a part of their
kind of core identity almost, right?
Exactly.
Is that security first, user first privilege, versus I guess that's the one good thing about, having them build the hardware and the software together versus say, other sides where it's, more open source and more prone to introducing malware into the app stores or Play stores and things like that compared to other things. But yeah, I think it's a good overall effort for them to really take this seriously and, like you said, not kind of give in and whatnot. But I guess I'd be kind of curious to know, okay, well, this is, NSO Group asking for some of this, but what if it's the, local U.S. federal government asking for information? Then, does that change their tune? But I think they've been pretty vocal about that as well on that side. So,
oh yeah, we've seen that case in San Bernardino where they didn't unlock the phone. And in fact, they're suing somebody else, I think now, that helped unlock the phones overall. But that's part of the reason I switched to Apple a while back, is I was just tired of all the fragmented Android stuff. So you'd have to wait on the carrier to release the update for your particular model of phone. So you could have an Android on one carrier and the other carrier still hasn't released the update. And I didn't like that from a security perspective.
Slow roll.
Where Apple controls that now. The carriers don't have that control when they go to release the updates. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Now we do get that with some of what's the Google Nexus or something?
Mm-hmm.
That line of phone, I think Google releases those updates like Apple does. So it's not completely lost, but yeah, definitely interesting.
So what are your thoughts though, like on general, like if we kind of look at, NSO Group and what they do and what they build and kind of what they target? I mean, do you think kind of companies like this should be kind of out there, or is it more, hey, they're trying to do something, legally, but, kind of get around some of the regulations and work with certain countries and, things like that?
It's a tough call because it's really an international security type of issue when you look at it from that perspective. So are you going to risk using an NSO group as a nation state and then cause escalation with another nation or not, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a double-edged sword from that perspective, if you think about it. I still think that we're going to start seeing some more escalations that'll come out of cyber war, and they could change back into actual war themselves. It's just a matter of time. Like you think about the Ukraine being hit and some of these other cyber attacks that have occurred.
Turkey.
And this right here, if you're snooping on data and getting information and all that, I mean, that's the driver behind this with NSO, is to get all this data. That could eventually cause some type of reaction that's not equal to what you think it was going to be from a nation state.
Yeah, definitely a tricky business to be in, right? It's highly charged and on many fronts there. So,
yep.
Agreed.
Okay. So another one we had was another, let's just say energy company, right? A wind turbine company, data security event, potential compromise, internal IT systems, all this kind of sounds very familiar from what we've seen in the past. So it's one of the largest wind turbine manufacturers. Basically had a cyber attack on their internal systems, a Danish company. They're still kind of probably investigating. I don't think we've seen much information about it yet, but here we are again, seeing another energy, gas, oil, water, wind type of system being targeted here. So I think our trend is continuing on this. We haven't, seen really a slowdown in this. We're going to see more and more as, the world shifts to more green energy and just, supply chain in general. So just another example of what we're seeing, out there with limited information, but here we are.
Well, I mean, other things to consider is that we're switching to all these electric cars, and wind power or wind turbines add a lot of the energy. We're shutting down a lot of the old coal power plants. The nuclear power plant here in Southern California is offline and decommissioning.
Yeah.
And without the wind power, and so as these systems get attacked, it's going to cause brownouts and blackouts that are unscheduled. Right. So we can kind of schedule some of the ones when we know a forecast and the temperature is coming, and you can kind of work and plan around some of that. But you can't do that when all of a sudden it just goes offline.
The systems are down. Yeah.
And so you're going to have other things impacted. You got the electric trucks on the highways that are coming and all these things that will be impacted that you won't be able to charge, and it'll cause a disruption. So I think these things can be greater than just the pipeline that occurred at some point down the road. I mean, you could knock a whole system off and it could take months to get some of this stuff. And depending on the damage, like if you spin those turbines too fast, you ruin them and they're no good anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what attackers are banking on, is that energy companies are more likely to be compliant with their demands as the ramifications for long-term downtime is high. The urgency to get Colonial Pipeline back and running was extremely high, and they paid the ransom. And although they were able to recover funds, I think that is exactly where hackers and attackers are banking on, is being able to launder their money and get it out of there before that could be reversed through systems like ARRP. So while I think the previous attacks kind of proved to a lot of groups out there that this is a viable attack surface. This is a viable area where we can continuously get payments. And if we can move quickly enough to transfer those funds into anonymous accounts, then that's where the real challenge is, right? Now, until we've increased the maturity across the entire sector, I think it's going to continue. I don't see them, refraining just because it's energy or because it may have impact from the government. It's like, they still don't have all the perpetrators behind Colonial Pipeline. What's to stop those same people from doing it again and again until you only need one of these, a percentage of the amount ransom to keep your operation going. I think it's just going to breed more until these companies become as high standard of security as, say, some military or government contractors are. Yeah,
exactly. And then all of a sudden, Interpol shows up.
Yeah, I know.
exactly.
Black helicopters and guys jumping through the glass windows and whatnot.
It's all circling back.
The other thing too, kind of just to touch back on this, right? I mean, this company says it's reportedly worth $34 billion, right? And of course, it says, hey, stock market took a dip, and the market took a dip around these, releasings of, hey, I have had a cyber breach or event, and again, this is a common theme we see here. Like, there's all these unintended consequences and costs that go into a cyber event. It's not just paying the ransom and paying the cleanup. It's, hey, my reputation damage, my brand damage, my loss of revenue. So to your point, these are highly targeted because they know that they're more willing to pay to get the things back up because the valuations are so much higher. And we've seen issues before, or in the news before, where these attackers kind of know what these insurance policies are. They know what they can probably get. They're not going to ask for some absurd number, but they're going to ask for a number that they can probably get a check written to within 24 hours, like saying, you know what, here's 15 million, go away, right? Type of a thing, which is, it's crazy, but to your point, we're going to see more of that because it's a whole business, right? They know their customer, which is energy companies or water, or, whatever you want to have and things like that. So
yeah, that's a very good point about impact to the brand, because you can see what that can do to a company when their brand gets slandered. Let's just look at Facebook. I mean, they rebranded their entire business because their previous business was now associated with some not so positive things. And if your business is associated with being hacked, I'm sure T-Mobile has gotten a lot of calls in the past, however long, about the integrity of their business and whether or not their customers' data is safe. So yeah, no, it's certainly it's a huge. I mean, it's a huge incentive to pay those kinds of numbers. What is that amount worth your brand? I think most business leaders would choose the brand, right? So yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, and I think kind of wrapping up here, kind of continuing the story, slightly different, but there's a couple of also looks like ransomware gangs out there that are kind of reshifting the focus, focusing now kind of on schools, hospitals, other infrastructure. So as we've seen in the past, kind of one ransomware gang kind of disappears, goes away for a few months, and kind of comes back as something else. I think we're seeing a few more of those happening right now as well. So I know, Mandiant was tracking a few and whatnot, but it's kind of like whack-a-mole, I think is the terminology you like to use, right? You kind of smash one and
two more pop up.
They just regroup at another location, and boom, here they are. 6 months later with the same operating procedures, if you will. So there's definitely kind of things like that happening, and we're seeing more of that. But schools potentially are kind of becoming more of a target now, I think, as certain states and regulations kind of loosen up and more kids are going back to school. I think we're going to see more and more of this as well, not just the online Zoom school type of a thing. So,
and all of the schools' budgets have been redirected to online learning.
Yeah.
And then when they do open up, they have to have their safe school plans to reopen. And so a lot of that cyber money, the OpEx type of stuff has disappeared. So they're relying on a lot of free and open source type of things, which aren't always the fastest to update, if you will, from that perspective.
Yeah, they don't have the greatest support. That's for sure. And it's very interesting because these groups, they're using the same principles that they used to obfuscate their code and bypass, endpoint and all these defensive software. They're using those same principles to evade law enforcement because, truth be told, it's a lot smarter to rebrand and go after different victims every time than to become this large criminal conglomerate that you have everybody coming after. Yeah. It's kind of like the big cartels versus the small cartels. Like one, you become such a big target that inevitably you're probably see some kind of downfall. But if you stay off the radar for long enough, you can prosper as a criminal for a long period of time. So
we can tell Sammy's been watching Narcos.
Yeah, that's
the cartels and all that good stuff going on right now.
Picking up a few pointers, a few tips to apply to my my toolkit.
Your social engineering toolkit.
That's
I
right.
like that.
Nice.
No, but I mean, it makes sense. Why would you stay the same brand if you can go after these inconspicuous targets? You never really put a target on your back, and they're paying out, right? It's kind of like being a smaller player in the game, but keeps you off the radar.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it type of mentality, right? Like if
right.
if your thing's working, right? And
scale means attention, you know.
Yeah,
that's
true.
the thing.
Yeah, and going after the small guys, I mean, they're probably going to pay.
Exactly.
So a higher chance of return.
Yeah, and then you just target more of them. You don't have to hit one target with
it's a volume
2 million. Exactly. Yeah, you don't have to hit one target with a $15 million ransom. You can hit 1,000 with a $100,000 ransom, and that's actually much more likely for them to pay out if you get like a percentage of that, you know.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't ring as many bells, right? Because imagine having to do, detective work on that many different targets as opposed to one primary target. You know, it's a lot more legwork, a lot more overhead. So
yeah, and I think also schools have been through a lot in the last probably 2 years, and they're kind of frazzled and running hair on end. You got regulations, you got each state, you got parents, you got teachers, you have all kinds of other political factors at play, and now you kind of add this in. It's just like they need to kind of catch a break here and there, but like you said, a lot of these basic kind of cyber hygiene still need to be in play, and a lot of these cyber basics we always talk about should be kind of a focus on them. But yeah, it's unfortunate, but as we all know, this stuff isn't going to just stop overnight, unfortunately. So
nope.
So that's why we're here.
Yep. Any kind of closing thoughts for this one, guys?
It's just the same themes over and over and over. Like, just focus on the basics. Do your MFA. Don't click the links on the emails. Copy and paste them into your web browser.
Yeah, especially now with shopping season, holiday season.
Yep. Back up your stuff.
Tell your friends and family, like, hey, just when in doubt, call, be alert. That type of thing. So.
Yeah, maintain that vigilance, trust but verify. A lot of these same principles, right? And then, of course, from a technical perspective, just make sure you're doing proper inventory and you're segmenting. And then combined with all these other things, your risk could be much lower. So
the other thing too, I would say, is like around this time of year, like check all your credit card statements, your debit card statements. Look for anything that's not really normal or is kind of suspect, because there's a lot of targeted people shopping in stores, skimmer cards out there. Gas stations are prime for that. So keep your physical kind of security mindful, and
I personally love more and more gas stations are now accepting the
tap pay.
Right.
I love that
situation, which is
That's
great.
so much better.
So I don't have to worry as much from that perspective.
Your card getting skimmed or read from the scanner. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's true. All right, everybody, take care. Be sure to subscribe. We'll probably do a special show or whatnot. So stay tuned, follow up, and take care. Bye.
Catch you next time.
See ya.